we're on the subject, could you please speak to the importance of partnerships when it comes to conservation, specifically the survival of the great apes?
Yeah, partnerships is very, very, very important when it comes to conservation, because even as you can see with the new Sustainable Development Goals, it's talking about so many issues which affect
Cross-cutting issues. Right?
Exactly, so many cross-cutting goals which all affect conservation. You know, like 10 years ago when we started conservation through public health, many people would meet, we thought were crazy, because why are you combining health with conservation? But now health is one of the main areas that everybody's seeing. But there's so many aspects. There's the livelihoods, development, education. All of these things come into play. So it's hard to do it by yourself. You definitely need partnerships. Even first of all, within the conservation organizations, we need to partner, and because the issues are so many. But then, especially when you're reaching into different sectors, like health sector, we find we have to work with the health sector, and we have to work with, like for example, the hospitals are happy that the community volunteers who promote conservation and health are increasing the number of people who go to them, because they can record more people in their catchment area. And because they can't reach out to them, it's very hard for them to reach in individual households. They just don't have that infrastructure. So these volunteers are doing a great job for them, and they've told us that. So those are the kind of partnerships which we're trying our best to create. Even through advocacy, we belong to certain advocacy groups. So we've been involved in the National Disease Task Force, which brings together the Wildlife Authority, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Tourism, to talk about how do we address anthrax. If there's anthrax in the national park, we had hippos dying of anthrax.
Okay.
And people were eating them and dying of anthrax, and the cattle were getting sick from the anthrax. And so it's a concerted effort to vaccinate the cattle, to carry out a behavior change, communication,
and deal with
so
all the
people don't
interconnected
eat.
issues.
Exactly, don't eat dead animals, and bury the hippos in time so they don't infect other hippos and other people and other animals. So so it was a very concerted effort that had to be done. And we're also part of the Poverty and Conservation Learning Group, which basically health is a very important component of dimension of poverty. So that's how we came in, so that we added value to that group.
Where is that group headquartered, or where's the central base?
It's based, it's International Institute of Environment and Development initiated the PCLGs, Poverty and Conservation Learning Groups, but the Uganda chapter was created about 5 years ago, and we're part of the Uganda chapter. And that's, again, we realize it's important to reach out to the development community as well, because that group is looking at so many different issues, but it's mainly focused on the great apes, actually, because it was initially funded by ACAS Foundation. So they've done some research in Bwindi to look at conservation through poverty alleviation. If communities that are bordering the park, are they more positive towards conservation because they've got benefits from conservation? So it's really good for us to all share information. Partnerships are very important.
Thank you for that. In terms of the declaration of a Great Apes Day by the General Assembly of the United Nations, how would that affect your work, and what contribution would the declaration of a Great Apes Day make to great ape conservation?
The declaration of the Great Apes Day would be amazing for great apes conservation, and I'm glad that Conservation Through Public Health is a member of GRASP, and we're very supportive of that declaration, because it's definitely going to help GRASP's work in advocating for the importance of the great apes and the challenges they're facing, and get resources for GRASP and GRASP members to be able to continue to do this work that we're doing under sometimes very difficult circumstances. Like people in DRC are always facing war, and it's really hard to preserve the great apes there. We're doing some work in Virunga National Park, but it's a lot of start and stop because of the rebels. And for us with our work, it would really help us to raise awareness of the plight of the great apes, even within Uganda, even with our heads of state, and even showing that, look, the communities living around the national park have very little healthcare, are very poor, but the national parks are very important because they have a very critically endangered species, the gorillas. Actually, Bwindi also has chimpanzees.
Yes, they do, yes.
It has like two of the great apes, and it's important to protect the great apes and their habitat. And so we need to look at poverty, we need to look at healthcare, we need to look at reducing the human population growth rate, and all these other things. So I think it will help a lot with fundraising, and our advocacy efforts and our implementation efforts.
It sounds as if the declaration of a Great Apes Day by the General Assembly would actually be an excellent entry point for addressing a much wider range of sustainability and development issues.
It definitely would. Even the issue, even of illegal wildlife trade, it would really bring a lot of attention to that, because it happens quite a lot, you know. Of course, more in certain parts of Africa than others, but it's a very big issue.